I'm very excited. We will be going live in about a minute. I'd like to invite you to come forward and sit. Dave is a very gentle soul. He will not hurt you.
Maybe.
Such good Episcopalians that the first row is empty. I dare you. I double dog dare you. Come on up.
Tina, there's no way for me to see the slides, are there, with me? Is there a way to... They're behind me. I guess I'll just keep...
Yeah, and you don't have to sit.
Okay.
You're welcome to stay standing
Okay.
if that works better for you.
But I told them I may stand.
That's totally fine. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Well, good morning. We are online now. Welcome to the Dean's Forum. For those of you here in Dagwell Hall, I will continue to encourage you to come on forward. And welcome to those of you joining us online. We're so glad you're here. I'm Tina Clark, Director of Formation here at St. John's Cathedral. And I am so excited for this 3-part series that we begin today on the spiritual side of caring for the earth and all that is in it. So thank you for joining us. I will open us with a brief prayer and then introduce our speaker. The Lord be with you. Almighty God, thank you for the people gathered here today in person and online. Help us to be good stewards of all that you have given us. Help us to see the beauty in every day, in every person with whom we interact, and with the animals that you have given us to care for. In the name of your Son, our Savior, we pray. Amen. So Dave Johnson has a full-time gig at the Denver Zoo where he mostly takes care of the pachyderms, which is awesome in and of itself. But then he spends his days off running the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund. And I'll let Dave tell you a little bit about that fund and how it came to be and what it does. Dave is also a children's book author, and I believe we have some books here today, which is so exciting, that Dave is graciously giving us for the children of St. John. So we will have those in our library and in our circulation, which is really fun. So without further ado, thank you, Dave, for being here, and welcome.
Thanks, Tina. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the invitation to come speak. Thanks to Tina and Enrique for helping me get to this place, and thanks to St. John's Cathedral, because I'm excited about sharing with you all the work that we're doing with a lot of the wonderful species around the planet and some of the amazing cultures that we share this land with. So it's been an honor to be able to take my zoo career and kind of spin it into a global conservation organization. So it's been an amazing run here. I've been here locally in Denver for 25 years now. Came here for the job. This kind of tells you a little bit about me, about being a pachyderm keeper, studying wildlife biology. But the biggest thing you're going to find out today is that that bottom qualifier up there is huge, because I'm an animal nerd, and I have been ever since I was a little kid. So some things I think come preordained in life. I think sometimes you have a niche that you don't understand where that niche came from, but my niche is definitely with people and with animals, and it's been an amazing run for me. So I'm gonna get up and walk around a little bit and talk to you a little bit more about my efforts. Okay. One of the, yeah, you can advance now. So one of the funny stories of me growing up is that when I was little and had all these little animals, and I drew their pictures and had only animal books and wanted to go to zoos, and I actually put my parents through quite an ordeal. I pretended I was an ostrich for about 4 days, and I think I was, the way my mom says it, I was around 4, and she sent me for the first time to therapy to talk about this issue, zoo. I didn't use any silverware. I walked around with wings, and I pecked at food, and my mom was like, oh my gosh, what have we got here? And the doctor told my mom that he's going to outgrow this, and he's going to be fine and normal. Just give him a chance. And my mom, much later in life, said, you never did. You never became that normal son that I was hoping for. You're always this animal nerd. And so one of the zoos I worked did this little ostrich art piece for me to highlight my first career as an ostrich when I was 4. Okay. But a little bit about my history. This is me. I'd gone over the fence, and my parents caught me interacting with a little baby elephant at a zoo down in Florida. I was born in Fort Lauderdale, and so I was already disobeying laws and zoo regulations. I'm the little kid that you hate to see at the zoo now, that just wants to get closer to animals. Okay? And this is what these people turn out to be. This is me as a grown-up, sort of. Me with Mimi, patting her tongue, letting her know what kind of coffee I had for maybe my breakfast burrito. They always liked you to pat their tongue so they could see where you'd been and what you'd been doing. That was their way of saying good morning. So Mimi was here in Denver for about 50 of her 52 years. So she was actually kind of iconic as a species, as an animal here that we all loved. Okay. And this is me growing up. I started working at the Nature Center in Asheville, North Carolina when I was 15. So I had to be dropped off by my parents till I got my license. Then got a license and a state vehicle to drive up and do a mountain lion sensitivity study. And I thought I was the coolest kid in town. I got to wear my first khaki outfit and drive a state truck and go check out for mountain lions. Took some urine and fecal samples up in the mountains to see if there were any wild cougars left. But I worked with wolves and elephants and went to South Carolina after I got my wildlife degree and started working with animals, and just really found that it was a true calling that I had, and that this is what I always wanted to do and what I actually was going to make into a wonderful career. All right? This is me up in Alaska doing a bear sensitivity study with the Bureau of Land Management. That's one of our sled dogs. That's Stan the Man. We lost him in the wilderness for about 9 days. We had to find him in a chopper. It was about a $30,000 dog that we thought the wolves or bears had gotten. That's me in Kentucky working with birds of prey. I worked with owls and eagles and would bring them out and talk to people about tolerance, about loving the creatures that you live with. Don't kill snakes. Don't kill birds of prey. And so I was developing a voice there as a young man, talking about what you should and shouldn't do when dealing with animals in the wild. Okay. This is one of the bears that we collared, and that way we can follow their wanderings around some of the river systems up in Alaska. They were having some issues with black bears attacking some fishermen and a geologist, so they wanted to figure out where the bears were so we could avoid having bears and people interact in negative ways. And so that human-animal conflict piece became huge for me in my career as I started the KACF, because that's a lot of what we work on, keeping animals and people safe and happy even when they coincide. So that was my first radio telemetry work. This is what I studied in college, but I quickly learned that I wasn't meant to be a wildlife biologist. Staying out in the woods for weeks at a time with one ornery guy that didn't want me to ask him any questions or talk to him. And he sent me down in a tent on the far side of the beach. And he said, if we're not catching bears, you can pan for gold or you can go take pictures, but don't come see me till dinner. And so I was like, wow, all right, this is not for me. As you will learn today, I have the gift of gab. I think it is a Southern thing. And so I like to talk, and not being able to communicate was almost torturous in the wilds of Alaska. So I decided I didn't want to do that. Okay. And I wanted to do something else with my career. So this is me feeding a black rhino, and you can advance. Black rhinos are very endangered. This is me working with a hippo. His name was Bert. And I was doing a dental exam. You have to wear many hats as a zookeeper. So I worked with him. He had lost a tooth, so I was actually spraying saline solution into his mouth. And with these guys, we do footwork, we do blood draws, we give vaccinations. So we are an extension of our veterinary arm at the local zoo. And so we are in charge of a lot of facets of the animal care. And we get to be in front of kids and families every day, which is also hilarious because, I can hear, and families will come by, and if you're doing something like this with a hippo or giving an elephant bath or doing footwork on a rhino, you listen to these moms say, oh my gosh, kids, look, if you study hard in school, this is what you could become. You could become Mr. Dave. Then when the animals go outside and I'm picking up their poop and I'm sweeping and shoveling and hosing, you listen to these moms and they say, now look, kids, if you don't study in school, you're gonna have to be Mr. Dave. And so it's hilarious. It really keeps you grounded, in a career. Okay. But through all of this, we were opening up a new exhibit for elephants and greater one-horn rhinos, and I wanted to have an impact. So I asked my zoo if I could go out and do some conservation work and go out and see what was going on in some of these lands where this new rhino, the zoo where I work is 127 years old. We had never had this species of animal there, and so this greater one-horn rhino was going to be new to this exhibit, and so they're only found in Nepal and India. And when we started our work, there were only 2,700 of these left in the wild. And when you talk about animals in the hundreds, that's getting kind of scary low. And extinction is a real thing. It's not just for the dinosaurs. It's not just caused by asteroids. But we're having an impactful event on the planet right now. There's so many of us, and we're taking up so many of the resources. And what we really need to do is find a way to share the land, share the water, share the soil, the air. We need to be able to work together. And so I started this Team Nepalorado, and it was a way for Nepal and Colorado to fuse cultures. And I took a group of 4 over with me the first time to kind of be a scouting trip over to Nepal. They had been in a Maoist uprising. They had been in a civil war. They had lost 9,000 people. So they weren't just losing wildlife, but it was actually affecting their human population as well. It was a dangerous trip that first year. We were warned not to go to Nepal yet, but we wanted to see what was going on and see if we could have some impact. So Team Nepalorado took out, and that was in 2010, okay? So what we did is, in order to have an impact, make some funds to help donate, I did my first full marathon. I had been running half marathons. I'd been running the marathon relay. We did the Colfax here, the rock and roll. And so I really like sports, and I like to be engaged with the community. So I decided to train and run a full marathon. So that's me just about to cross the finish line. I ran in just under 4 hours. So I ran a 3:59, which is what I was shooting for. I picked a Marathon Runners for Dummies book at Barnes & Noble, and I picked I trained by the one that was in between a professional athlete and a couch potato. So I was like, all right, I'm right about in the middle there. But we made a shirt called the Mimi Marathon, and we ended up selling these shirts and getting funding, and we ended up making $10,000 to take over to Nepal to help them fight poaching and work with these animals to save them, okay? So that's the first year. We ended up buying them the 4 anti-poaching motorbikes. And what we found there was a lot of orphaned baby rhinos that the moms had been killed by poachers for their horn. If you guys don't know, horn is considered an Asian medicine. It's actually just keratin. It's like our fingernails. It's matted hair. So it really doesn't have any medicinal properties. But in the folklore of some of the Asian countries, they think that it can cure everything from migraines to cancer, and so to libido issues. So they were trying to save these rhinos, and the numbers were getting low in Nepal. I think they had under 400 left, and 2,700 total in the wild. And the little girl up front, her name was Narayani. and she had been washed ashore. She had been washed away from her mom in a flood and had a broken leg. And so she is actually an animal that I wrote one of my kids' book about, because I had her be a princess in Nepal that was teaching this fusion of cultures, bringing Americans over, teaching people how to take care of wildlife and to understand. And she ended up going to the Kathmandu Zoo after she had healed from her injuries. Okay? So the next year, 2011, we ended up making $12,000. We went back and we started building these solar-powered electric fences. And so these fences are to keep big animals away from people, away from their houses, away from their gardens. Elephants chasing grandma, not good. Rhinos coming in and eating all of your cauliflower that you're supposed to be feeding your family doesn't make for a popular human-wildlife coexistence. So we thought that if we helped build these solar-powered electric fences, that it could kind of keep them. So one side is national park, and one side is the community and the community forest. So we were helping with that, and that was it charges during the day with the sun, and then they turn it on at night when the animals would be coming in to raid. So it was another way of doing some human-animal conflict mitigation. Okay. So this is the old Wildlife Veterinary Hospital that's in Soraha. It's on the outskirts of Chitwan National Park, which is a historic national park. Used to be the hunting grounds of their royalty. And then they turned it into a national park in 1973. And this was their old vet hospital for animals from tigers, elephants, rhinos, crocodiles, snakes, birds, and this was pretty dilapidated, run-down old building. And they said after we had helped with the anti-poaching bikes and helped with the fence, they're like, hey, why don't you help us build a wildlife veterinary hospital? Okay? So this was the construction of this building. We ended up raising about $70,000 over the next 4 years. And you can advance one more. And this should be the vet hospital in completion. And it just got finished in 2021. So that's the new vet hospital. And in November, we were just there doing an elephant health camp. And our team from around the U.S. looked at 43 elephants. We did footwork, health assessments, blood draws, and all of these are working elephants in the national park that actually take mahouts on their backs and they count tigers. They count rhinos, they arrest poachers. So these animals are utilized as almost like a horse would be in our country. They use elephants over there to do all this work for them. And so now we have a new wildlife vet hospital in place, all done by our community in Denver. So pretty special. And now I write kids' books instead of running marathons. So now I can be chubby and not have to train for 7 months. And when I ran, I weighed like 168 pounds. This is me at 192, much happier. So when we go over, we also take medications for the vet hospital. Some of these are for tigers. So you see me with a tiger shirt there. You see a zookeeper from our zoo that works with tigers, and her handprint is there by a tiger print on one of our rafting trips. I was a rafting guide in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, and coolest raft trip ever is if you get to watch a tiger swim across the Carnally River in front of your boat, and then you get out to see that tiger again, and a mama rhino comes out of the grasses with her baby. You really can't get that in North Carolina, where I grew up, so pretty fantastic. But being able to take some of these medications also that dart man-eating tigers and get them out of the community. They're terrorizing a village. Maybe it's an old tiger. They have worn teeth. They can't catch deer anymore, so they start preying on humans. But we go over there, take these medications, dart these tigers with their vets, with the National Trust for Nature Conservation, and they put them in the zoo. I've had to talk to some of these zookeepers that have to work with man-eating tigers at the zoo. I'm like, you're welcome. They're like, you're a zookeeper. Look what you're doing to us. But at one point, we had like 3 man-eating tigers at the zoo in Kathmandu. Okay? And this is what you get to see sometimes from a trail when you tell the guide you're listening to a tiger date and they're roaring back and forth, and the guide says, would you like to hike up and try to get in between them and see one of these tigers? And I stupidly say, yes, that would be awesome. And we walked up and we get to see tigers in the field. And funny story, the guides, they don't have guns or anything. They have little bamboo sticks. And if a tiger is around like this one was, you can bang these sticks on the ground or on a tree and act loud like the primates that we are and scare the tiger away. When this guy came out and roared at us, I looked back down the trail. All of us stood our ground perfectly. You're not supposed to be a prey species and run. And both of our Nepalese guides with our bamboo weapons were running down the other side of the trail. So we had a good talk. And now I carry a bamboo stick when we go over there. So now I have a tiger weapon. But tiger numbers have also increased in Nepal. And we're involved with a lot of camera trap surveys as they move out of the parks and start living around areas and homes. So we're kind of watching the tiger population now. Now I think there's over 4,000 animals. And I think at one point we got closer to 2,500 tigers left in the wild. So lots of good success stories. Okay. This is our team with a little baby rhino. I know it doesn't look so baby, but this one survived a crocodile attack, and his name was Biru, and he ended up going to the zoo with Narayani. So that's our community there, made up of zookeepers, PhD candidates, vets, vet techs, and some of our zoo volunteers. So just a really great way to take the community to these places and get them involved. So you don't just rely on people funding your own trips and getting stuff done in the wild, but you actually take people over there. All right? This is some of the community. We have street drama kids that teach about coexistence and tolerance. And they are dressed up as elephants. You can see a lot of people laughing. We pay for their costumes, and we actually pay for school scholarships for these kids. All right? These are just other ways that we help out with the community, because you can't help animals. You can't be a Westerner and come into these places with your own philosophies and mindset. You have to come in open-minded, and that's what the KACF was doing. We came in asking them, what do you need? What do you value? How can we help? And this scholarship for these kids, $100 a year, will send these kids to school. So these are our street drama kids. So that buys their uniforms, their books, and gets them to school. And I look like a giant over there. I'm only 6 feet tall, but I could be the center on their Olympic basketball team. I'm huge. Okay. So this is all leading up to 2014. And what happened became a turning point for me and for our future organization. I had a Zoo Crew teen member. She was in Zoo Crew at 13. She joined Zoo Explorers at 14. I was an advisor for our Zoo Explorer post, and that's letting kids explore jobs and careers. So these are little budding animal nerds being watched over by, a full-fledged animal nerd as they kind of find their wings and their voice. And Katie was an amazing young gal. She ended up going to CSU. She was studying wildlife biology just like I did. She wanted to go to Nepal with us, and she ended up getting a Ewing sarcoma. And she got a childhood cancer when she was 18 in college. And she fought very hard, went back to school, went into remission, got better, got worse again, and it finally took her from us in 2014. And so we already had 2 children's books out. We had already been going to Nepal. It had already been 4 years. And so we decided that we were going to, in her honor, I went to her mom and dad, John and Colleen, and I said, we want to make a difference in Katie's name. And so we started the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund. Okay? So with that, you end up having a lot of impact, and you end up creating a way to come up with solutions, like Good Guide to Honey. These are, we got them some of the poachers that are killing rhinos were the Chapang community. They had been moved out of Chitwan National Park, and they didn't have a way to have any sustainability. So we moved them in some beehives, and they could have honey and wax, and they felt like they had a guardian angel that was sent to them. So we ended up doing this honey project with them, and good Gaida actually means good rhino. So instead of killing rhinos for the horn, we wanted to show them that we could partner with them in a way to where people and rhinos could be safe. When we got there in 2010, they were losing 10 to 12 rhinos in Chitwan National Park every year to poaching. And a lot of this was being led by the Chepang community, taking people in so they could make some money. Now they are losing a half a rhino a year. So every other year they're only losing one rhino. And the population has rebounded in Chitwan. And we have given these people a way to get their kids in school, a way to feed their families, and also the power to know that they have somebody that's looking out for them, that cares about them. And that's really huge for some of these people and some of these cultures, okay? So this is our Chepang honeybee projects. We go over there and check the bees out every year when we go. We play soccer with the kids. We give them school scholarships. They had an art contest, and we brought all of their art back and mailed it to our donors as a thank you. So they're getting art for thanking them for helping them with their bee project, because these beehives are about $85 a hive. And when we put them in there, they actually helped change this whole community and their thought processes about Westerners and about poaching, okay? Pangolins. We have 2 pangolin projects, one in Nepal and one in India. And these little animals, this is the most trafficked animal in the world. These guys are actually, these scales are made of keratin. So this little animal is like a walking, breathing rhino horn. And they ball up for protection, and people will duct tape them and ship them around the world in coffee containers to be used for medication. So just another creature that we have, because of our interest in elephants and rhinos, because those are animals I work with, we had an offshoot. We found out these guys were working with pangolins, and they needed our help too. And so that was just another way that we could work in Nepal and India with some of these endangered species. Okay? This guy is called a musk deer. So I'm introducing you to some of these amazing creatures. This is actually a very prehistoric artiodactyl. The males have these fangs. They're like a vampire deer, and they have musk glands. And unfortunately, the musk glands are coveted for perfumes and aromatics. And so they kill these deer. They snare them and they shoot them. So this is another project that we worked on. We had a local artist, Karen Clithermes, do a musk deer piece of art that they use in all of their publications, all of their journals, all of their work with the people in the community, to try to have them realize that they shouldn't be killing these animals, but actually coexist with them. Okay. We also have figured out that there's other species. You look at elephants and tigers, maybe taking 15 lives a year in Nepal. And then you have venomous snakes killing 300 people a year. And so we talked with Kamal Devkota last fall, and he said, why don't you help me reach out to people, keep them from killing snakes, and have ways that people are educated about being around venomous snakes. And so he's doing all this amazing work over there. So we're donating and working with him on this King Cobra project as well. So it's saving royalty, saving these big snakes. They can be up to like 18 feet long, and king cobras oftentimes feed mostly on other snakes. So they're actually kind of good to have around. They will take other venomous snakes out of your neighborhood. Okay? And this guy here is a crocodilian species that we work with. This fall, we're going to be having Croc Fest when we go to our elephant health camp. And this is called a gharial. And the males, females don't have the the protuberance on the end of the snout. That's called a gar. And that's how these gentlemen speak to the ladies. So that's like a resonating chamber, kind of like maybe you've seen on Jurassic Park. This is how old these guys are. So they use that to find mates. And these guys are only fish eaters. So very slender snouts with little bitty needle teeth. So they only eat fish. So they're not dangerous in the waters. But because of fish being netted, sometimes these crocodiles get caught in the nets. Sometimes people eat their eggs, or they kill them for meat and for their beautiful hide. So we're working with gharials over there as well, because I just don't want to be a packy guy anymore. We've been around a long time, so we need to have more of an impact with different species. Okay? So we also work in other countries now, and we're going down to Costa Rica now, down on the Osa Peninsula, and we're working with sea turtles. One of my kids' books concentrates on letting kids know that they have an animal that's their guardian, they're like their spirit animal. And so sea turtles is the August month. So instead of them having a zodiac sign, they have a zodiac sign. And so we want to work with all 12 of those species, because when I go to schools and little Johnny asks me what we're doing with sea turtles, I can tell them all about our project down in Costa Rica. Okay? So this is a big, these are all turtle nests. So there's maybe average 100 eggs in these nests. And these nests have been moved by our team away from where village dogs can get them, away from where rivers will flood them and the eggs will be destroyed, away from where there's poaching going on, because down in Costa Rica, they'll dig up these eggs and sell them at local bars. And so it's just a way for us to maintain this population and make sure these babies get a chance to hatch and get out to the ocean. Okay? So our partners down there are Tortugas Preciosas de Osa. And this is me and Ray. We are weighing baby turtles and measuring them. The first morning I took a group there, 1 October of 2021. First morning we had no hatchlings. And I was like, oh my gosh, I brought 12 people here to do this work. And we were patrolling the beaches at night for poachers, no hatchlings. And this was the height of hatchling season. I was like, what if we go 5 days and we don't have any baby turtles? The next morning we had 200. So, good. Relief. So this is us weighing them and measuring them. Okay. Part of the science project that we're kind of doing with the team. That's a little baby olive ridley in my hand. That's just about 35 days in the egg before hatching. Okay. And this is a bucket full of baby turtles. These are actually hawksbills, which stay in the egg closer to 45 days, so much more developed. And if you wanted to race turtle babies, this was the bucket that you wanted. So they would beat all the olive ridleys to the water because they're much more developed. But different turtle species lay their eggs on these nests down in Costa Rica. And so it was a great opportunity for us to take some people down. Okay? And you can advance, and that might be a video. Nope, go back. So this is us releasing all the baby turtles on the beach. 1,300 we did in that week, and that's all of them crawling away to the water. And our team, you tried to keep birds of prey from coming in and taking your turtles. You had to be on guard as they swam out to ocean. So giving them a chance, they're saying that maybe only 1 in 100, maybe 1 in 1,000 reaches adulthood and gets to come back to those beaches. But it was pretty special getting to watch these guys all head to the surf. Okay. So part of the community work we do is always going to involve kids. Kids doing artwork for animals. Kids, I play soccer, and so wanted to play soccer with kids. It's the most, prolific sport around the world. So we do this all over. My 76-year-old keeper assistant on Fridays, Chuck, he's our goalie. So he said, of all the things you have taught me and had me experience in life, he goes, I never played soccer before. And he's from Minnesota. So I was trying to teach him to talk smack to the kids. And if you have heard Minnesota nice, it's hilarious. He would wag his finger and say, don't you come back in here, children, after he'd make a save. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you should just bake them cookies. You're not taunting them at all, Chuck. But so we played soccer in Costa Rica, had scarlet macaws flying over our head, got to donate books to their their library, which is right beside them, and they all did some art. But I put this on them that in order for us to sponsor you with balls and jerseys and stuff, you have to all go release sea turtles. And they had no idea that this place was just down a dirt road right by the soccer field. So now we've had their kids going to release sea turtles and get them entrenched in this conservation concept. Okay? So this is some of the teams that have gone down to Costa Rica. Even when I can't go, we send volunteers, we send zookeepers, we send explorer scouts down to work. That's a bunch of kids picking up trash on the Turtle Beach. Okay. And we work with the Sloth Institute down there to save the sloths. We have a wildlife veterinarian that actually will treat electrocuted sloths. Sometimes she will remove damaged limbs and get them back to the wild. Sloths do a very good job with only 3 legs. So Dr. Isabel Hagnauer is our sloth veterinarian, and we've got some sloths with radio collars from the Sloth Institute that we're working with. Okay. And that's me with one of the keepers at the zoo, Anton. And the guy back behind me, Miles, I actually babysat him in college. And so I became part of his family. When his mom and dad were going through a divorce, Mom wanted him to have a male role model. And so I passed on a lot of animal nerdiness to him. He would backpack and do animal. Now he works for a conservation organization in New Hampshire. Had me come and speak to their organization the last 2 years, and he backpacked into Costa Rica with us for jaguar conservation. And that's his wife, Leah, right behind us. So part of our jaguar team. And Jaguars is the February month, if you're wondering why all this stuff is connected. Okay? And this is sometimes when the animals you're working with don't coexist too well. So this is one of our jaguars, Maria, that has preyed upon one of the sea turtles when they come to lay their eggs on the beach. So Maria has cubs. She's feeding her cubs. This is very natural. But we wanted to get to see Maria on the beach walking around, but she actually took this sea turtle out, and it was on our camera trap, but we did not get to see her that night. Okay? We are now working with amphibians as well. If you guys didn't know, frogs and salamanders and toads are really suffering around the world from a chytrid fungus. A lot of times that is spread by people into some of these environments, and it kills off these amphibians. A lot of them respire through their skin. So any type of fungus like this that gets on them can actually really do a lot of damage to these populations. So we're working on northern leopard frog stuff here with Dr. Mickey McComb-Kobza. We hope to be doing some stuff this summer with her, releasing tadpoles out. She works out of Boulder. She's our shark biologist buddy. And then that ties that in with our work in Ecuador with frogs, with our work in Panama, Costa Rica. So we want to advance some of this amphibian work and take it from the backyard to a bigger playing field. Okay? And this is my shark slide about Dr. Mickey. And she actually, we got her about $2,500 when she spoke here for our community to tag great whites off of Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. And I got to call my brother in Wilmington, North Carolina. This is insider information. And I said, hey, don't go swimming right now, because every tagged great white in the Atlantic is right off the coast of North Carolina. So please don't take my niece and nephew swimming because they're all there, and they think they have found, from this tagging these sharks, they think they found a breeding area where they all congregate before they spread out. So really interesting stuff with Dr. Mickey. Okay? And we have a lot of bird projects. Those two sisters there are the Galkies, and their parents run the Georgetown Loop Railroad. They were both my Zoo Explorer Scouts, and they wanted to get involved. They both worked at the zoo, and McKenna was in the bird department. And so they went down to work with a lot of birds, and these are some of the bird projects that we have going on. The curassow is in Colombia. That hornbill, the yellow one, is in Nepal, and they went down to work with the macaw recovery network, doing some macaw work, and they just released a bunch of macaws back to the wild. So these girls got to go, and they had a train event, a conservation train for us in December, and these girls raised over $5,000 for the KACF for conservation. So pretty amazing when you release the reins a little bit and let people help And it's quite interesting to see what people can come up with if you just embrace different ways for people to help. Okay? So I climb mountains here. I take people up 14ers, and we've been doing climbing for rhinos for years. And then in 2016, we decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, the biggest mountain in Tanzania. Instead of doing 14ers, we raised the stakes a little bit. We did a 19er. I had 16 people climbing. We had 12 make the summit, but this started a lot of our work with conservation in Africa. Okay? So they did a documentary on us because we were climbing for a cause. So they did a movie called In the Footsteps of Giants. I went to New York at the Conservation Film Festival to see the release. That's all of us at the top of the mountain after being 5 days climbing the mountain. It was pretty spectacular, being at 19,340 feet, and we ended up raising $10,000 for black rhinos. What we were doing then is flying zoo rhinos, black rhinos in Europe, back to Tanzania to be in breeding centers, to have black rhinos on their home soil having babies, which is all you could ever ask for a zookeeper. To be allowed to be able to see these zoo animals go back to the wild was pretty special. And so we got to meet one of the rhinos. They were coming in from the London Zoo, from the zoo in the Czech Republic. And so that was pretty amazing to get to climb. And there's some of the rhinos in the sanctuary. Okay? We started a soccer tournament in Tanzania with all the kids. So these guys are playing soccer with a greater one-horned rhino on their jersey for being paid for by companies in Denver, Colorado. So it really ties in a lot of our global efforts. And it was kind of cute. We had won that tournament several years, and I was going, and I started realizing, like, wow, these guys our team's really good. We're winning every year. And then one year I recognized that our team lost, and then the next day we were in the tournament again, and our jerseys were on another team. And I was like, and our buddy was like, yeah, the donors really like to win. So I was like, oh, that's called cheating where I come from. And I don't want to win this tournament every year because we have other sponsors paying for teams that they're like, oh, second place again, haha. So actually 2019, they had a different team than the KACF actually win a legitimate tournament. Okay. This is me with some of the kids in the community going. This was right before a shootout and the final, so lots of excitement. And this community then sees that conservation and saving animals is really an option for them. And then the winners would get beehives and stuff to utilize. Okay. What we found out, Dr. Lucy King up in Kenya, as we're doing this already with bees and everything, she found out that bees actually scare elephants away from people's homes. So instead of having to use a solar-powered electric fence, you can make a fence out of beehives. And she did an auditory study, and she's a doctor out of Samburu, and she said the most negatively impactful sound that you could ever play an African elephant is the sound of bees, a swarm of bees. Worse than gunshots, worse than dog barking, worse than people's voices. When you played these bees, they got in a tight-knit group. All their ears were out, their tails were out, and they ran away as fast as they could in this unit. And so she was like, wow, they hate bees. And it ends up African bees. A lot of you grew up watching Killer Bees and The Swarm and movies that I did. They're very aggressive. They will chase elephants for miles. And so we're using these now not only for sustainability and economic impact, but now we're using these little yellow and gold watchdogs that will chase these elephants away from people's homes and gardens. So it was a pretty neat thing to uncover after we had already been doing this honey and bee thing for years. Okay. So this is Joe from the downtown aquarium, and Joe is a beekeeper himself. When he found out that we were doing this, we partner with the aquarium. Joe was like, I want to go help. And so that's him putting out these beehives from the KACF. And that's the way we can partner also with a lot of different local organizations. We partner with the Butterfly Pavilion. I went up and had a meeting with them, and they said, what is an elephant rhino guy doing here? Get out. And I said, well, I've got these books, and we've got these projects, and they include bees. And they were like, tell me more. And so they actually took the books into their gift shop, and now they are taking groups out to Africa and doing, and we're going to have an event in March called Bees for Elephants up at the Butterfly Pavilion. And we're flying in Lamek Mukabura, our elephant researcher. We're actually helping Lamek get his PhD. $2,000 a year will help a person get their doctorate in Dar es Salaam. So Lamek will be here talking about some of these efforts. Okay? This is what a beehive fence looks like. You give the bees some shade, you give them some water, and you let them go to work. There's a cable in between them that people or animals can go under, like cattle or sheep and goats, but the cable connecting them, they're about every 30 feet. And then these bees will come out, and if an elephant tries to get through and tries to sneak in, they're smart. Elephants have a 12-pound brain. It's a lot of memory storage. So they can try to get through this fence, then they hit this cable, and it aggravates 2 hives that come out swarming them. About their brain and their intelligence, the solar-powered fences ended up not working so well for us. Big bull elephants realized that their tusks don't conduct electricity. So they could actually take their tusk and break the wires. Or if you didn't have big tusks and you're afraid of getting shocked, all you really have to do is walk beside a younger elephant and kick them into the fence, which we had on video, and let that young bull elephant roar and tear down the fence, and then everybody gets to go in and eat all the corn. So the bees have ended up being a great way for us to help with human-elephant conflict, okay? So that's taken one of our community members over in a bee suit to taste some of the honey over there, all right? That's the way you can safely get around the bees. This is our honeybee project now in Africa. Maisha na Tembo means elephants and people. Tembo is elephants, and that's called coexistence honey. So we bring some of that back with us whenever we go over to Tanzania. All right? This is our women's project. What we wanted to do is really advance women in conservation in the field. And we have a woman, Diana Nchambe. She's a chief warden over in Tanzania. She's one woman. The other 29 chief wardens in Tanzania are men. And we got to work with her in Kijireshi. Elephants are matriarchal, so they're women power. All their society is based on grandmas and moms and sisters and nieces and daughters. And bees are also female dominant. So the queen and all the bees that go around, most of them, the drones are the males, they don't do hardly anything. And the females actually run that society. So having a group of powerful Denver women with Tanzania women doing stuff with bees and elephants, it just made sense. And we did a women in conservation documentary about these ladies making a difference, okay? And now we're starting some work in South Africa. So we were there for the first time last year, okay? And we're working with penguins in South Africa. We'll be in Cape Town in just about 10 days. Working with SANCOB on a chick rebolstering project to save babies that have been abandoned and getting them back to the wild. And we send zookeepers down to help with this. And we did a splash tag with emperor penguins. So you put instead of putting a collar on the penguins to track them, you put a little something on their flipper that actually broadcasts to a satellite. And you can actually follow this emperor penguin all around Antarctica with a researcher out of New Zealand. Okay? And this is us working in South Africa, and we collared 2 bull elephants with our team, and the chopper is darting the elephant and then getting the bull into a kind of a grassland and not in the forest, so we could all get out. And I was amazed. They would never let us do this in the zoo community, but we had all these people in these Land Rovers, and they said, y'all get out and help. And I was the last one in the Land Rover. I was like, what? I thought we would be watching and filming, and they had us taking nail samples and hair samples. 2 of our guys got to reach in and get a fecal sample in the field. I hope I can say that this early on a Sunday morning. But that was the most exciting part of their trip. They gave me the glove, and I was like, I do this at work. We're going to pass the buck on to somebody that doesn't get to do this. Being guarded by armed armed guards keeping elephants and lions and Cape buffalo from coming in, and we got these collars on. So they're doing a bull study that about human-elephant conflict and where these elephants go and which ones are the marauders, which ones go into villages, and that can set up maybe where we want to put our beehive fences. Okay? And that's us on the field, in the field doing this collar on this big bull. Really interesting. They put a stick in the end of his trunk, and I took some video, and he was snoring. And I was just watching it, and it keeps his trunk open. So I was like, pretty cool. All right. We're going to breeze through these last ones. This is our team putting a collar on. One of the guys that went to college with me, and I hadn't seen him in like 30 years, and he wanted to help out. He's still in North Carolina. All right. This is the black rhino they say we've been working with to help it from going extinct. There's about 5,700 of this species left. So told you about greater one-horns, black rhinos. Rhinos, actually, those are the more prevalent ones. We actually have a Sumatran rhino that there are only about 80. The Javan rhino, there's only about 60. And there's a northern white rhino right now, guys. There's just 2 left, and they're both girls. So that extinction event's going to probably happen in my lifetime. All right? This is Anton, and he is one of the rangers in South Africa that we actually were there to see him last year, and he got killed by poachers the night we arrived into town. And so these guys actually do have a bounty on their head. They're protecting rhinos, and it's a crime syndicate. Rhino horn is worth more than gold. It's worth more than cocaine. It is a trafficked item, and Anton got killed, and so we did a boot drive, and we called it Anton's Heart and Soul. And these guys are training to be rangers. Some of them were running these 10K races and go through all this stuff in flip-flops, in sandals, in Chuck Taylors, these tennis shoes. And so we now, thanks to Susan Weingart's idea, we now have them be able to take their size boot and train in them while they're going through this training, and then they turn them back in, much like we all used to do at roller skating rinks when we were younger. You just take your size 10, turn it back in. So that's what we did, and when we go there in a few weeks, we're going to be able to introduce this, and his son, who's 21, is going to be there with us for the ceremony. Okay? We're in the home stretch, I promise. Health camp in Nepal. We did our first one last fall, taking care of all the elephants I told you about. All right? That's our team. We had we had a farrier, a local farrier here working on their feet. We had the elephant foot care guru from Baltimore Zoo. Mike McClure went with us. We had 14 people working on all these elephants there in Nepal. All right. This is my last climb of Kilimanjaro. That's us at the top. We just had to go on over to Uhuru Peak. I just did this again in November. So I don't know how much of a window I'm going to have left of climbing this mountain. This was 8 days in a tent. It was super cold. I didn't think my bone marrow would ever thaw out again. But I got to put up beehive fences afterwards. That was our dessert. Okay? This is me up on Mount Kilimanjaro. Pretty special being at the top of Africa for sunrise at 7 a.m. After hiking through a 3-hour blizzard, all for the elephants and rhinos that I love so much. Okay. That's us putting up the beehive fences in Mkomazi National Park. All right. And that's a Cheyenne Mountain zookeeper, a curator from our zoo, all helping out. This is the big thing that we do, guys, human-wildlife conflict and coexistence. From collaring elephants to paying for EBA to try to help with orca research up in Seattle. She actually smells, I guess I can talk about it now, I've already used the P word. She smells orca poop, and the boat will be directed to where they can take samples and see, check cortisol levels, check their stress levels, check which orca actually just deposited that. And we're planting trees in Borneo for orangutans. Even when we couldn't go, we were paying the community to plant trees for us to help with these orangutan corridors. Okay? These are my books. I'm going to leave them with the church. About Elephants in Denver, about Little Narayani, and the Zodiac Kids is our a book about kids' birthdays. And I got my 4th book coming out this summer called I Am Katie, and it's about Katie passing on her baton to the next generation. Okay? We're sprinting to the finish line. These are your totem animals, so I don't have to take the question about what is your animal. We did that slide to keep that because that's the biggest question I get at school. So these are all your animals. So pay attention if you want to do a trip with us with your birthday species. See me after this talk. Okay. I Am Katie coming out. This year. It did not make it for Christmas. Okay. This is our city, and I feel like the KACF is a community effort. This is way bigger than myself, and it involves so many people. I think we have 900 people on our newsletter now. All right. This is the impact we've had in the U.S. All the green states are where I've been doing talks just like this. So I'm kind of like an animal nerd tumbleweed. Okay? These are the countries now that we're involved with, and we are now in 24 places around the world, sending people over to help with conservation. Okay? This is Grover. This is the car that I drove to your church this morning in a partnership with Peak Kia. They gave us a Kia Niro. It's an electric car, so it really is great for our conservation mission, and we wrapped all of the birthday animals around it. So we call this car Grover. So Grover is all over. Okay? And that is it. I sprinted to the finish line. So, okay, great. Some questions. Yes? Mountain lion sensitivity study?
Dave, you need to repeat the question for the people online.
Okay, thank you. So a sensitivity study, that's the question. I relayed that earlier. We were trying to figure out if there were any eastern mountain lions left in North Carolina and Tennessee. So we were trying to figure out if they were extinct there or if there was, because there was always some folklore tales of there still being painters, panthers, catamounts, all the names for mountain lions. So the sensitivity study was something put on by National Geographic to see if these are actually true stories or make-believe. That's what I did when I was 16. I was pretty cool. Other questions for me? Yes, a comment. Okay.
I just wanted to thank you so much for this presentation. St. John's has a group of people that read books every month and then meet to talk about them. And our January book was The Elephant Whisperer.
Oh, that's a great book.
I don't know if there's anyone in the room here from that group. No, maybe I'm the only one. No, you were there too. And yes, so anyway, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome. Welcome. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. As you can tell, I really like...
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you all for joining us. As always, join us for our 10:30 choral Eucharist, either in the cathedral or online. And thank you all for being here so much. And we may see if we can do a fundraiser with some of Dave's books in the weeks to come. Next week, we've got Kim Yon Farrell from the Park People talking about trees.